How's it going, Jimmy?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, you as well.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, pretty busy.
Tried to get you back on to the Ramblin' with Ryan podcast there a couple times, but
Yeah, this one worked out perfectly. It's actually reading break, so
Yeah.
I have lots of time, so it's
Good.
perfect.
How long are you off
timing.
for?
Just next week. We've got the whole week off.
And then when do you go to exams?
I got exams mid-April to late April.
Second year UBC Law student,
Yep.
correct? Correct. You finished your bachelor's at
Kwantlen Polytechnic.
And what was that in again?
Criminology.
Right on. And then, as I know, you were at U of A for 1 year.
Yeah, I did my first year law at the University of Alberta in Edmonton.
We never got to spend any time together while we were both out there. I think we were both pretty busy. I was working heavy hours, and you're obviously
First
being a
year
law
grind.
student, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty incredible, I think.
Thanks, buddy.
But tell me a little bit about how much you enjoyed living in Edmonton, Alberta.
I actually, for everyone who's asked me, they're surprised with my response. I love living in Edmonton. I love
heard
the
that
people in
before.
Edmonton. I think they're really good people. A lot of blue collar people. I met a lot of kind people. I had a great experience. I really like the weather out there compared to Vancouver. It's cold, but it's always sunny. I'm not a big fan of the rain myself.
We had a couple good winters out there before I moved away, and I mean there was times in January's 10, 12 degrees, and
It's great.
again, like you're saying, no rain ever.
Yeah, I
you know,
loved
it's
it.
1 or 2 days a month,
Yeah.
maybe. So that was always nice. And you know, even on those cold days, we used to go to West Edmonton Mall when they had the big skylights and just do some water sliding with some
For
sunshine
sure.
coming through. So it kind of felt like your imitation beach scenario. But,
Yeah, it's great.
did you? I think it was you that liked that article. What is going on with this? Like, apparently people are now getting let into the law program with a GE, like with barely any qualifications.
Yeah, I saw that. I believe that was the University of Arizona in the States law program. I guess they're having a bit of a crisis in the States with applications to law school being essentially at an all-time low. So they're really reaching out to people there. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of that, but
Yeah.
I understand.
Is that, do you think, like economy cost or anything? You know, a lot of businesses going down and under, I guess, if there's not a lot of ton of
Yeah.
corporate law or small people trying to do their own firms and practices. Would that relate to it? Or do you
I totally think that relates to it. I mean, people look at the job market, and especially down in the States, I think the University of Arizona is around 38,000 American a year, and they do a cost-benefit analysis, and it's perhaps not the best return on your investment at this time. So a lot of people are looking at other avenues for their career and education.
Mm-hmm.
Fair
What? I mean, we talked about this when you were on with mine, but what kind of pushed you to the law field? That
Actually, I went back to school to try to get into the RCMP. So I went initially thinking I was just going to do 10 courses. And I've got a pretty bum knee. I was basically told that would probably be an issue to getting into the RCMP. So I knew I was sort of interested in the law in one way. Like, obviously, the RCMP, they enforce the criminal law. So I sort of sat back and reevaluated my options, and I thought entering the legal field in law school was fairly similar. It would allow me to achieve some of the same goals, and things just sort of spiraled and fell where they may. A lot of it wasn't even planned. It was just sort of after I went for 10 credits, I did a little better than I expected, and it sort of snowballed from there, and I met really good people. And then I was just going to get my associate's degree, and then when I got that, I got my bachelor's, and then I sort of evaluated after that. And fortunately in Canada, the legal market is still pretty healthy, and our education is much cheaper here, so I thought it would be a good career.
Did your season watching of Suits and Harvey Specter have anything to do with your decision to become a lawyer?
I actually can't watch Suits. Before law school, I tried to watch it. I'm a bit too critical of my television, I guess. It just seemed too far-fetched for me. Lovely Suits, though. Great Suits.
I saw an
Sharp
article
style.
a while ago when people were following that pretty closely, and it was just like, this is nothing what it's actually like to be a lawyer. You know?
Definitely not.
Any depiction of any
Good show, though.
It is a good show. But yeah, any depiction on a TV show of any career is going to be pumped to make it look way better than it actually is.
Well, you need the zing factor, right? I mean, there's things that are happening on that show that probably never happen in law or in real life, but
Yeah.
sort of gets the attention of people, and it's the wow factor and the awe factor. And
I'm sure it does put people on the path to want to become lawyers, though, right? Like, that's what got me, movies and the portrayal of the courtroom experience. When I was in grade 10 and 11, I did career prep for law.
Yeah.
And as soon as I actually went to a law firm and seen what they did, I was like, fuck this.
Pretty interesting,
I want
yeah.
nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I'm not
what
saying
kinda
it's not
scares me.
interesting, but it's just paperwork. So much paperwork.
Yeah, and it scares me when people see a show like Suits and
Yeah.
that's the only
don't
research
think that
they
it's
do into
paperwork, right?
going into the law, and they go to law school and they make this investment, which even in Canada is a significant amount of money. I mean, that's...
Is there
I
a lot
think-
of subsidies or any assistance for you?
Oh, I
or-
think in Canada we're very fortunate. I mean, our education costs are already much lower than the States because we have a lot of government support for our post-secondary schools. There's a lot of great bursaries at UBC and at U of A when I was there for low-income students who otherwise might not be able to pursue these studies. I think we're definitely really privileged here in Canada, and we have a lot of great opportunities.
privileged and opportunity, but you still get a lot of people arguing the education should be completely free.
Yeah,
How
you
are
do.
you?
I mean, I totally disagree with that myself, but
Do you see people at school that you're with that hear complain about that or anything?
oh, definitely. There's a lot of supporters for the free post-secondary education movement at UBC, and I respect their view. Personally, I don't agree with it. I don't think anything is actually free. Free education is costing somebody. I think post-secondary education is a privilege. I understand that elementary and secondary school are rights of Canadian citizens, but personally, I just believe post-secondary is a privilege, and I think it is available to pretty much everyone in Canada. You may not be able to go right when you want to go, but I mean, personally, I wasn't able to go to Kwantlen until I was, I believe, 23 or 24 because I didn't have the money to go. But thankfully, I was able to get a job here and save money and go a little later on. So
Fair enough.
I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Do you think there's any reform that needs to be done? Do you think that tuition costs should need to be lowered at all? Do you not think that they're... I mean, I agree with you. I don't think things should be free. I think, just like you said, you worked. You saved money. You did what you had to do to get into the program when you could. But I personally do feel like tuition costs are ridiculously high. And there are people...
When I went to Kwantlen, I don't remember it being too bad, and I also
Exactly.
did receive a couple. I got
can
a
get grants and
I got a
bursaries
docking off of my student loan payments for having a high GPA, and we got some money from small scholarships for having good grades and playing baseball and whatever. So
And I mean, the full-time fees for post-secondary like Kwantlen for undergraduate, I believe they're a little higher at SFU and UBC, but in the same ballpark. If you're taking a full-time course load, like maxed out at around 5 courses, you're paying maybe around $2,000 a semester. So
That's it?
that's it. I mean,
I'm
not
paying
sure why-
$500 for one class. How
Yeah.
does that work?
Well, I mean, the classes are about $400 each, and a really full semester would be 5 classes. So you're
Fair,
around
yeah, I guess,
2,000.
and then books and everything. So it's
Yep.
I guess really it's not. I always thought of it as like 30 grand a year kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I can't speak on the education costs in Ontario. I believe they are higher there, but I also know they're lower in Quebec. I'm not sure exactly what they are in Alberta, but I don't believe anywhere in Canada the prices.
there's
are anything like
no
America.
comparison to American schools at all. Like when I think after my second year of school, we were looking into going down just to Washington, Skagit Valley. I think it was 7,000 or 8,000 American a year, which I mean wouldn't have been too much more than Kwantlen, but then some of the other schools I'd been talking to, like Texas Brownsville, will cover 50%. It's just going to cost you about 11,000 American. It's like,
It's crazy.
Wow.
give me a break. And even when I was lined up for going down to Chicago State, they had same thing. They were going to give you residency fees, so you weren't doing an international student thing, some money for academics, and it was still, I think when we were looking at it, 18 to 25,000 American, which, you know, to tack on a student loan to cover that for a year. And
I'll also say this. I guess I'll make it kind of controversial. I don't think many of these programs should be free. I mean, I don't see the point for our country and for our economy to pay for everyone who wants to get a liberal arts degree.
No, I completely agree. But I guess the argument I'm making, or I would make, is in situations like a doctor, for example, who spends, you know, I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'm going to say it's got to be at least over like 200, 300 grand before they're actually a doctor. before they're actually practicing and making money.
Don't you think there's some correlation to somebody who pays that money and how badly they want that job, though, opposed to just anyone who could walk into that program?
Yeah, there's also a difference. If the program didn't cost money, it would still, I would argue, be available to the same people because the criteria to enter are extremely high, and the reward. If you do a cost-benefit analysis of becoming even a GP in Canada, I don't think you'd find anyone who would find it to be an unfavorable analysis and an unfavorable
Yeah, I
career
guess you'd
path.
have to actually talk to someone who went through it to see what once they, get their own practice or start with a practice, how much, I really honestly don't know how much they're making a year to start. But I guess my argument is that when they get out, they're now doing a service to the people of their community. Yep. And to me, I think, and the workload that they're putting themselves through while they're in school to get to that point, I just feel like as a country, that's the kind of field that I would have no problem our government
I totally
reimbursing
agree.
Once they actually get out and
our government
practicing.
does for a lot of the doctors that do the public thing. But I also think doctors very important for society, very, very respected in society. But I think everyone who has a job is important for our society.
Mm-hmm.
I understand medicine is extremely important, but I don't think it's fair to give those people a free education when I would argue pretty much every job, anyone who goes to work full time should be appreciated, and they're important for what they do to our economy.
Agree.
So I can't really get on board with that argument. I get what you're saying, but I think that devalues a lot of other people's contributions.
I guess the other point I would make to that is you see, I don't think you see it so much in Canada, but you hear about it all the time in the States where doctors are, persuaded to prescribe certain drugs, certain things, because they're getting kickbacks. And I think the fact that maybe they don't feel like they're being reimbursed enough lends a hand to that. They're like, hey, well, I got to pay off my student loan somehow.
I think that's just human nature. I think
they're
already among definitely the top five highest percent paid earners in society. I think that's more human nature. I think people are looking to make the quick buck, and it does happen here in Canada. And
yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
I think that's a huge problem, though. I think that's something that should be taken care of. I don't think it's fair that you should push certain medicines just because you're getting a kickback.
I completely
definitely don't agree with that.
Well, I just seen a thing yesterday that apparently the federal government in the States is trying to squash any of these dispensaries that are pushing CBD oil as a medical for helping people with seizures or whatever, because they're saying basically that pharmaceutical companies have.
I think anybody's going to get their hands in on an opportunity like that. Whether that's doctors, lawyers, things with FDA, like for food approval. You got so many things coming through there, and this is healthy for you. Do this. Mm-hmm. Go with these. These aren't used with chemicals, processed food, blah blah. But the recommendation is going to come from, a lot of times, somebody you see who has some money invested in a program.
Totally.
And
I agree.
If they get the right people.
Yeah. Well, that's where, you obviously didn't agree. I posted that thing about Jamie Oliver fighting this for a sugar tax. I think it's more just happening where in his, I guess, London or Great Britain, whatever the area is. But you don't agree. You don't think that.
I don't think it's government's place to tell people or tax people on what they should eat. I think that encroaches on liberty, to be honest with you.
Well,
It disgusts me.
I don't look at it as the government. I think the problem is that the government has allowed these companies to put these things that are harmful to our bodies in almost everything we eat. And I think that's more what he's fighting for. I think he's trying to make people realize that the food we're eating isn't what we think we're eating.
And do you think the best way to make people realize that is by charging them more money for that food? I really don't think that.
Well, I don't think
he's a labeling or nutrition system.
I'm a huge fan of better labeling GMOs and stuff like that.
I can agree with that.
And I'm a huge fan of individuals making their own choices for most things in life. I really don't like government telling people what they should eat. I mean, look at in the 90s, the recommended food guide here it's pretty much laughed at now for what the government thought we should
I'm gonna
eat.
pull that up.
Well,
here.
he's not only fighting for that though, right? Like, and this is the thing is it's tough to really we don't live in that area, but he's also at the same time pushing for the education system and school, the schools to push a healthier diet on kids.
Yeah, I'm all for better education and understanding of nutrition and things like that. I'm not for blanket solutions such as taxing everybody because some individuals have a
can't
problem with what they
contain
eat
themselves,
and they don't have a good understanding of what they eat. And a lot of times it's not their fault. Sometimes people do know what they're eating and they still choose to do that, and I think that's fine. I don't think it's fine to just tax everybody. I'm a big fan of individual solutions, not blanket solutions. I think in a lot of things in life we need to start looking at solutions on an individual level rather than imposing sanctions on everybody.
And there's no reason that people can't. With the internet, you can find information on anything you want. And I can agree with you that 100% people are just too lazy to do that. They don't want to find the information. I think the majority of the population is happy being told what's good, what they should do. They don't.
It's scary.
Yeah,
It's terrifying. It is terrifying.
But I think that's where podcasts are an amazing tool for that. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are the reason I've altered my diet, or the reason I try different exercises, eat different things, right?
That's life. I'm glad you've had the opportunity to discover that for yourself and make those choices for yourself, and I think that's a great thing.
I think the argument that I would make is that the three of us and most of my friends, how we grew up, it's around us. We kind of have that foundation around us to know to look for that kind of stuff, to ask those questions, whereas there is a huge percentage of the population that don't have that, who grow up in a way that almost they're set up to fail.
Yeah, I agree. But if you look at the same population as you're talking about around us, I find that people still react to things in such positive tones without doing proper research. To transition a little bit here, you shared an article on I forget his name, Roosh.
Oh, Roosh V. Yep.
And I actually really appreciated what you had to say about that article. You got attacked on it, which I found ironic. What I took that post to mean was people should maybe do a little bit more research before they react so strongly to something. I mean, I didn't actually read about it, so I don't know. Based on the
initial look at that article sounds terrible.
Exactly, and that's the clickbait headlines that I fucking hate.
Yeah,
well,
it's brutal.
It scares me, though. I mean, people these days see a clickbait headline, and I'm reading comments like, this guy should be beaten to within an inch of his life. It's scary.
He hasn't hurt anybody.
I don't agree with his viewpoints. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I find it ironic that, especially a lot of these people who preach anti-violence and stuff, when it comes to something that bothers them without even doing any research, the solution is violence. Things like that. It's scary to me.
That's kind of an open platform on social media, and I think you see it a lot more like on Twitter or something than
the level of hypocrisy. Is and people and it's hypocrisy.
I can't lie. I feel like we've all probably.
Oh, we've all done it. I've done it.
We've all done it. Been part of it.
I've
tried to.
Guilty for sure. Right.
I think over
trying
the
to
years.
learn
But I've also, and I think any of us would, when they realize they were wrong, I've multiple times changed my view on things within podcasts, talking to guests. Like, all right, I didn't even think about it that way. That's a good point.
Definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed since entering law school is I'm seeing a lot of debates where they're so respectful and it's more of a dialogue back and forth and people willing to cede their viewpoints to good facts and stuff like that.
Which is difficult to find that.
Yeah.
Very difficult. It's
Ryan and I, we were talking about it before we got here. When we got started, we were sharing a lot of articles and talking about things, and we don't necessarily, it's good, obviously, that we don't agree on everything. Otherwise, it would be pretty boring. But to be able to have a conversation, debate, like
we've had multiple, right?
But that's what it's all about to me, to be able to have debates about it and still respect each other and things like that.
The thing about that, like I did quite a bit of research on that Roosh guy after that, because I was like, shit, did I give my opinion too quickly? So I watched a bunch of videos. Someone on there mentioned the BBC video they did on him. I thought that was an unfair portrayal I thought they took the worst of the things he says, and really the guy, clearly you could see he disagreed with it, which is fair. But when the person interviewing shows one side or the other, whether they disagree, it sways the viewer's opinion. And I watched another one by that Rebel Media. A guy did it was like a 25-minute conversation with him. The guy didn't say one way or the other whether he agreed with his views, whether he disagreed with his views. He just asked him the questions and let him answer. And you get a completely different view of his viewpoint, of what he's trying to preach. And I think a lot of these outrages that you see are fear-based. So in that particular, girls don't like that viewpoint that he has. And
just to be clear, the viewpoint that was shared on mainstream media, I don't know if it's correct, but I don't like that viewpoint either.
But that's a huge over-exaggeration. That is not his viewpoint at all. I don't believe for a second that he believes that. That's my opinion. I don't believe for a second. I don't think you're going to come out and say that if you believe it.
Should we announce what we're talking about here so people know? This Roosh V.
Oh, the Roosh V. Who people basically
his statement was there's a lot of going on in the UK and US about rape culture and people being falsely accused or defining rape or everybody's saying this. So what Roosh's initial post was, the way to get rid of rape is by legalizing it. So on personal property. Mm-hmm. And that was obviously sat very, very sideways with a lot of people.
Yeah, but
when you go into the story, that's not what his point or purpose was at all. So when Ryan and I talked about it, it was just kind of he has a point he's trying to make, but I don't agree at all with the way he went about trying to make it.
Yeah,
and it was just way too offside to approach it that way, right?
That's not, in my opinion, from what I watched, he doesn't really believe that. It was, and people all of a sudden came on and said, oh, he altered his articles and re-archived and added things to make it sound better after people realized, after the outrage happened, which, yeah, obviously you're going to try and alter things to calm people down and let them know. I don't think
he was even planning on doing tours, right?
He does do tours. That's what and I think the reason the outrage grew so much is because he's part of, oh crap, people listening. Oh, I got into a conversation. I wanted to tell people to not to shut off. God, you feel the whole hour.
Sorry, you having
Just one sec. I got to restart our thing here.
Oh,
people were listening. Continue. It'll be back on. They'll come back. Unfortunately, it's right in the middle of my point. I think people, because of his pickup artist background or whatever you want to call it, and helping, which I have no problem with, to be honest. Again, I think a lot of women don't like that he does that because they feel like it undermines the whole situation, but that's a whole nother topic. I think people jumped on board so quickly because of that, and obviously, I'm trying to find it here, but there was he claims it to be a satirical article, right? And I'm trying to find the name of the other book that was written years ago that is kind of based on the same thing. Obviously I don't feel like he believes that rape should be legal.
Yeah.
But he's trying to highlight the fact, and unfortunately we're not allowed to talk about it, like that, women need to worry for themselves about this. There are guys out there who will do horrible things. So you need to be cognizant of that. It's not victim blaming. It's just simply saying, be cognizant of what can happen.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the argument that I don't understand, is you can't even bring that up to women without them just simply screaming victim blaming.
Well, you definitely experienced that after you made that post there. It took me a good hour to read through everything that was going on there, and
I just got attacked.
I mean, you can't blame them for sharing that opinion or whatever. And like I said, when I read the article, someone had sent it to me earlier that day or before, and I was pretty blown away. Like, I could only get through about half of it on a break at work there, and then I finished it up later on after you had posted it. So I don't know. I don't know where to go with it. It was just.
I'm not a fan of it, but to each their own. I mean, I don't think the guy should be persecuted for his viewpoints.
No.
I mean,
and I think that was
in freedom of speech and things like that. I don't agree from what I've seen with pretty much anything he says, but that's fine that I don't agree with it. I don't want to arrest a guy for having that viewpoint. I'll just, live my life in a different way, and I think people can ignore him if they don't like him.
That's exactly it, and that's the part I think people don't understand, is that by making such a big deal out of everything, they're just giving him more power.
They're just
giving sending
him more power.
More of the people who do agree with him his way.
It's almost, what were we, podcast you and I did a while ago, the micro, it was about the students. You were showing me that article. They were being outraged by the journalism. What was the word for it? The
microaggressions.
Microaggressions, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is. It's just...
I watched a video on that. It was a comic, or what the heck is it? The Insult Dog. I haven't seen anything with him. Remember, he was on MTV. He did like some stuff with Eminem back in the day.
Never
Triumph the Insult Dog. He was in an Eminem. Anyway, he's just a dude with a puppet, a dog, and he just insults but he's clearly very intelligent as well. And there's one of his recent videos is him talking to a bunch of college students, and I'm not even going to get into it because I'm just going to ruin it. But I'll send it you. It's quite amusing. It's about this whole culture of that is going on. So what I want to get into is Super Bowl.
Alrighty.
I want to get into. Me and Jimmy already had a discussion on it, but I think it's a huge discussion that's going on right now after the Super Bowl happened and the Cam Newton throughout the year, and then his the way he acted in the post game press conference.
I saw a couple highlights about it. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on what happened. I saw that maybe he stormed out of there, or was kind of just moping, or
pretty much, yeah. I would say he sat there in a moping fashion. He answered a few questions, and then eventually
for a minute and a half.
Yeah, and then got up and walked out.
I mean, put yourself in the situation, right? Third year in league, second year,
fifth.
Yeah, I think
it's been around that
fourth
long?
or fifth. Yeah,
oh, wow.
This is his fourth or fifth full season.
Still a pretty young guy, though.
I guess like me and Jimmy completely disagree on this point. I don't think it shows that he can't be a leader. I think in the same way...
Hold on, I don't think that it shows that he can't be a leader in the future. I think it shows that he wasn't a leader in that instance. That instance doesn't determine who he'll be in the future.
But what I'm talking about is, do you think, other than that specific event, that 1.5 minutes, and then when he walks out, do you think he was a leader before that?
I mean, obviously he's a leader to his team in his own way. I guess I'm more old school in sports. I'm not a big fan of the dabbing and dancing after every first down and jumping over your opponents and things like that. Not my leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he wins in a very eccentric way.
Yeah.
And he's very in your face as a winner. And I think if you do that, you have to be a lot better as a loser.
I can agree with that point.
I agree with that point 100%.
But at the same time, I think just as he shows emotions on the field in the positive way, in that situation, I mean, the guy's been a winner for how long? He won at every level.
He won
every level. He's won.
Was it Rose Bowl with the Ducks, or he didn't play?
No, he wasn't with the Ducks. He was with
Auburn.
Auburn.
Oh, okay.
He won.
That's cool. And just because you're a winner at every level doesn't mean I don't think you can be a gracious loser.
I agree. I don't think that made him an ungracious loser.
I do. Saying things like "Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser."
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's gracious. I think there are a lot of people who lose, and they're respectful of their opponents, and to call them losers.
But Michael Jordan was a known bad loser, and you're going to tell me that guy isn't a leader?
I think you're confusing. I don't like his dancing. I never said he isn't a leader.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not my style.
I like what he brings to the game. I love it. I think he brings an excitement.
I think you're seeing that a lot more in sports, not just necessarily Cam Newton in football, but guys getting a little more flashy in hockey as the young crowd comes through. In baseball, things with Jose's bad flip this year.
Yep.
A lot of the young players, like, it's kind of You know, that's one thing we were sitting when we were talking about. There's a new generation of players coming up, and you know, sports is one thing, but in a new generation of life, I think that age of people handles things considerably different than the age we grew up watching, and it's going to be an adjustment seeing the changes people make, right?
I totally agree, and when I say I don't like the way Cam Newton celebrates, I'm not saying I want Cam Newton to stop celebrating that way. I'm saying that that's not the way I would celebrate, and it's not the way players I admire celebrate. I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate that way, and and I totally agree that it's a younger generation thing, and that's maybe going to be the way they do things, and I respect that, and it's just not the way I do things.
I feel like
that's fair.
I feel like that way interests me a little less. It turns me off of sports, considering, you know, grow up watching sports, like idolizing guys like Roy Halladay, Derek Jeter,
classy
the way
guys.
they go about their business and like epitomize what the sport. And I mean, if some guy came in and, you know, it's one thing, like you said, to celebrate and dance, but if you're gonna pout and if that guy's gonna take home 4 MVPs and 3 Super Bowls, I'm sure not gonna respect him the way you respect a guy like Tom Brady. Or, you know, even my whole life, I hated Peyton Manning and the Colts and whatever, but you know what, you gotta give it to that guy for the kind of career that he turned in. And
I'll say this, I mean, there's people who dislike the way Cam Newton celebrates. I don't know, I've never heard of anyone, even if you're not a Peyton Manning fan, saying, you know what, the way you take a loss, we don't appreciate that. No one has a problem with being a gracious loser.
Yeah, and Peyton's lost as much as any other guy in big situations, and he always sat there.
And he ran off the field without congratulating. I think that happens maybe more often, but I remember seeing something about that in his first loss in the Super Bowl when he lost to Drew Brees.
Oh, okay.
He left, didn't congratulate, didn't go to the middle of the field, didn't shake any hands, just ran off the field.
And I totally disagree with that. And I think that was a poor display, and just like I hope Cam does in the future,
learns from it.
Peyton didn't do that.
Cam Newton, if you're tuned into the Ryro podcast, we just like you to handle yourself a little better in the future.
I guess my problem with it, and that's where like those hashtags came from. What bugs me is this idea that we know what it's like, that we can look at what he did, what he goes through, and tell him he needs to act differently. That bugs me, regardless of whether it's Cam Newton, whether it's Tom Brady, whoever it is, sitting on the couch. And I do it. I'm not saying I don't do it, but it just, I think with social media and the ability to just post at the click of
a guy can get picked apart.
It frustrates me so much that we feel like we know how they should act. We have zero idea what it was like, what it's like to be in his shoes. Yeah, zero.
Absolutely.
I play, like you mentioned, I play fucking flag football. That's the highest level that I've gotten to, or rep hockey. Yeah. That's it. Pressure, I don't know what the fuck pressure is. I have no idea. And that's what bugs me the most about it.
I mean, we have no idea, but we see other guys who do have that pressure and they do react in a different way, so we can point to...
But everyone's different, and that's my point.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Everyone takes it in a different way. And I don't think there's a problem with him showing emotion like that. I think that that's almost a good thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, should we move on to another subject point here?
What would you like to talk about, Matthew?
I don't know, Jimmy. What direction... Let's go back into some lawyer stuff here while we still got you for a little while. Before we were talking about potential options for you to develop in a career, and has anything come into general direction for you yet, or any thoughts developed towards that?
For the podcast, just because there's so many different areas in law, and in school we don't get any practical experience really, so it's really hard to say with certainty what area you'd like to get into. There's a lot of things that interest me, but I don't want to...
Is there a certain year that a lot of students kind of, through the law program, do you have to pick and choose a direction more or less?
Usually students start getting jobs in second year, and they do summer articles in second year, and then they stick with that firm after third year. And the rest of the students get a job in third year. But it's more so, I mean, some students are lucky enough to get multiple offers and choose what they want to do between those, but it's more so if you get an offer, you kind of take it.
Is there a lot of recruiting straight out of the law schools?
There's a lot of recruiting from the large firms because they have the finances to invest a lot of money in recruiting students, but
Fair enough.
the smaller firms and some of the government positions and the not-for-profits and community things like that, it's sort of, you have to find your own way.
Will you be doing any clerkships in the summer? Going?
No, I didn't apply for any clerkships. I understand that is work, and it's a very prestigious thing to do nowadays. I'm hoping to get into something and just get right into what I'm going to be doing, hopefully, and start working.
Fair enough.
So you have two years?
I have 1.5 years left.
And law school's only 2, or you did a year already?
Yeah, I did a year already.
3 years for law program.
Yeah.
I always thought it was at least
Another
like 4 years
kind of
of
a doctorate
straight law
sort of thing.
school. Have you thought of any other schooling you're going to do to specialize afterwards?
I'm not. It's hard to say. Like, I never thought I'd be doing more than 10 course credits at Kwantlen, so I don't think I'm gonna do any school afterwards. I miss working a lot, but
Guess it
I don't
gets
know
you
for
after
sure.
a while, hey, and this being the 6th year now, being in the books, right?
Yeah, totally. I miss working a lot.
Get back to everyday life. The other day we were talking about a Matt Lato signing. Have you been following a lot of the baseball off-season signings?
Yeah, I try to follow baseball. I mean, I love baseball. I don't follow it as closely as you. Obviously, you're a big fan, but I've been following most of the signings.
I was hoping to get somebody on here to have some serious Blue Jays chat, but I know we didn't have a lot of options for that, so I got to fire some things at you there for Blue Jay fan listeners. But,
what do you think about the election race going on in the States right now? I know it's something you follow, that you pay attention to.
I think it's crazy.
It's a show, hey?
It's a show.
What do you think about?
Okay,
so before we even get into what do you think of it as a show? What do you think of it as? You compare it to, in my opinion, how we go about our elections. It turned into a bit more of a show this year with Trudeau.
Like reality TV,
but most of the time
pageantry.
it's a lot more boring. It's more, the conversations are way more tame, more on the topic. We are starting to go, but what do you think of it in the States as much of a show as it is?
Oh, I think it's crazy. I mean, yeah, we're much different here in Canada, obviously. I think I don't know, I guess in a lot of ways I do think it is good because it's a long time for people to hopefully do their research on candidates and it's sort of put in their face, and I hope I think it's a very important thing, voting, and I hope they do their research in that time, but if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think the majority of voters do, and I think we talked earlier about sort of being able to listen to other people's viewpoints, even if you don't necessarily agree with them, but with an open mind. I don't think that happens between the Republicans and Democrats.
No,
in
not
the
at all.
States. It's sort of, if you're a Republican, that's it. If you're a Democrat, that's it.
But that's a big problem, just specifically with the layout of that two-party system, right?
Well, it does force a lot of choosing. There's no kind of middle ground.
I'm a Republican. It's just like we were talking about, like being a team, being for the Blue Jays, being for the Patriots, being a fan of one team. You're a Republican fan. You're a Democrat fan. That's what you identify with.
Yeah, I was listening to Ben Shapiro. Actually, he was on that Louder with Crowder podcast when I was at the gym the other day, and he made a point that if someone is an extreme leftist, somebody else who can be a left point of view but not as extreme to that other person is just, you're automatically conservative and right, and there's not a lot of respect in other people's opinions going on for.
That's the problem. I mean, because you identify, so people look at it as their identity. Like, I'm a Democrat, so as soon as they hear a viewpoint they disagree with, it's shut you off. You're so conservative, or I don't know. It's terrible. I love it, though. I mean, I love the.
It's a
Who are you hoping to
been-
see out of candidates to go through for the American?
If I had a vote, I would vote for a candidate on the Republican side. I know that's not the popular viewpoint on social media platforms and in school and stuff these days. I would, at this point, I mean, he has no chance of winning. If I had a vote and the vote was tomorrow, I'd vote for Ben Carson.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I like a lot of things Ben Carson does. But I will say there's not one candidate where I'm on board completely with their platform.
I don't think you
so.
can be.
I saw you as a full Donald Trump supporter.
You know, I really appreciate a lot of the things Donald Trump does, and I think he's been very important. We talked about the landscape of the election in the States, and I think he's done a huge job.
That's
in
where I was
changing
trying to
that,
go with.
He opened quite a few point of views.
He did, and I mean,
A lot of doors that aren't really. That's the one thing you don't see a lot of people go into an election and say, get rid of Muslims, build a wall between Mexico, get rid of trade with Canada.
And it's extremely over the top. It allows, I think, the other candidates to be a little more honest, be a little more.
I'd put a caveat on that. It's your opinion that it's over the top, but his views are shared by a huge group of people. I don't necessarily agree with them.
Yes, yeah.
But to say that those views are over the top, I would agree with you in that opinion.
Yeah.
But that's our opinion on it.
Okay.
And I mean, that voice, I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump, but I do like a lot of the things he's done, and I really dislike a lot of the things he said. Yeah. But I think that voice was needed, and it's evident with the amount of support he has that a lot of people are feeling the things he's saying.
The thing at one time, he's being very honest. People think with these kinds of outlandish comments, oh, he's so honest about whatever. But at the same time, he's completely dishonest because his viewpoints have changed drastically.
Yeah, I mean, the only candidate whose
Democrat.
viewpoints haven't changed, and I would never vote for him because I'm not into socialism.
Yeah.
But I give Bernie Sanders a ton of props. He's never flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And the only other candidate I'd say is Ben Carson. Ted Cruz maybe too.
Ted Cruz has been, from what I've read up on, he's been very consistent.
Yeah, he is consistent. Again, like I'll give props where they're due. Bernie's very consistent. I would never ever vote for him, but
no. I think this is the thing, and I think with the states, it's with almost everything they do, everything's over the top. Everything, in my opinion, is just they take it too far. In my opinion. So you look at a Bernie Sanders. While I believe, in my opinion, healthcare is something that, just like being protected by the police, having a fire department that can, I think it should be the same thing. It should be available for everybody.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think the best way to make it available to everybody is through government. I think the best way, and it's proven time and time again, to capitalize on your money is the free market. I think I could take my dollar a lot further than the government.
I can agree with that, but what about the people who don't have that dollar?
And those people need a voice. But again, I don't like blanket solutions. I would rather we paid much lower taxes to actually only provide healthcare for those who are mentally ill or actually fallen on hard times and things like that, because I do think everyone should have healthcare. I don't think it's a right, but it's something that I really personally think everyone should have.
You don't think it's a right?
I don't think it's a right because I think rights are natural and inherent. I mean, healthcare is not natural and inherent. If you boil it down to, say you and I are the population of Canada, and I'm working, and you're unable to work, and my taxes go to both of our healthcare. Well, if I stop working, you no longer have healthcare. So I don't think you can classify it as what I'd call inherent rights if someone can take it away from you. I think the only inherent rights we have are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So you don't think we even police, fire, that?
No, I think police are very important, but I think their role should be limited to protecting our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I mean, government and regulatory bodies have gotten in on way too much, in my opinion, now for what their purpose was supposed to be when established.
What's your thoughts on I know there's been in the last couple of years a ton of issues with police assaults, but now there's an overwhelming amount of people posting videos of a routine pullover where you got your phone in the cop's face, just telling them to beat it or not doing what they're asking, and if I'm driving down the road and I see police lights behind me, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to pull out my insurance and license, give it to them, and answer their questions quite politely and hope I don't get a ticket and I didn't do something wrong.
Yeah, here's my views on that. I mean, there's a lot of people. I respect both sides because I think you should do exactly what you said. And a lot of times people make false reports that police were being racially prejudiced or, unfair or too violent or whatever. And I think it goes the other way as well. I mean,
there are a lot
of police that do terrible
power
things.
of abuse.
Yeah. So it's not like one cancels out the other. I wish there were no police abusing their authority and all police were great. Unfortunately, that's not how it is. Yeah. I wish people respected police. Unfortunately, that's not the way it is.
I guess it's the same for me as when you look at this rape culture thing.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. You got two sides, wide variety.
Punish both sides equally harsh. You need to punish people for false accusations, and you need to punish the people who commit these crimes when it's proven that they did in harsh terms, and just as harshly. Because unfortunately, there are people out there that simply for attention, whether they're putting their phone on a cop or making a false rape accusation or whatever it is, they're looking for attention. And if we don't follow that closely,
the only thing that scares me with that is, say you have someone who makes a rape allegation and the individual who is alleged to have committed the rape is found not guilty. Does that automatically mean that there was a false allegation?
That's not what I'm. That's not at all where I would say. I would say it would need to be proven that it was a false accusation.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, but I think we need to find a really good way to do that because I do understand the victim shaming argument too, and people's fears of bringing those things forward, and I do think we need to address those. But I do also totally agree that it's a very serious allegation to make in a false way, and it can have terrible impacts on your life. So if we could find a way to address that while still not pushing actual victims away and stuff, that would be great.
I would disagree though that it's like I mean I'm sure it still happens, but in my opinion I think it's swung. The pendulum has swung the other way as far as victim blaming, and
this is one side that we talk about a lot, so our opinions can be swayed that way, right? Where
I totally agree with that though. I mean, if you look back even 30 years ago, the pendulum was too far is way too difficult to prove a sexual assault charge. Yeah. And to fix that, the lawmakers in criminal justice system, I think, have swung back a little too far to protect those people. And I think we see that with a lot of things in life. It's we see something's not working, and in a way to fix it, we swing much too far to the other side. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Exactly.
Unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. It's just finding balance, right?
I guess you can tie a lot of these things together. For me personally, and I mentioned it in that argument I was having about Roosh. I value honesty over protecting people's feelings, above and beyond anything.
Yeah,
and I think
you make your
we
points
have
clear.
A lot of dishonest people in society, and then it's very unfortunate. Whatever the reasons may be to people, whether they're protecting their image or whatever, that I just wish people would be more honest. And unfortunately, because of shaming for whatever it could be, people find it hard to.
I think a lot of it even starts just kind of the way social media initiated, and it's just a platform. And I think one of the biggest problems you see with social media, a lot of it is, kind of a highlight reel of people's lives, and they want to portray the best person. And realistically, you can flip through my Instagram and see all these trips we take, all these things we do, but there's the times you're having a struggle, I'm not going to sit down with when I'm in the middle of a mental devastation and post a pic, be like, not having a good day. Thanks,
some people
right?
do though, right?
Yeah, some do, but at the same time, there's that stretch for approval, there's that stretch for everybody wanting to feel they matter a ton more, and sometimes if they take an opportunity in a situation to make a scene where it's not necessarily,
people want like that validation without the hard work, without earning it though, and that's I think what a lot of it boils down to from what you're talking about, and tie that to what he was saying earlier with schooling. If you want something, you can get it. We live, especially in North America, especially in Canada and the US, you want something bad enough, you can make it happen.
Absolutely.
And I believe in that. I believe in capitalism.
Yeah.
I'm pro-capitalism.
I don't know how many times in life you've been without... I've been in times where you're, jobless or need somewhere to go or something to do. And you put your mind to it and do it. I can't ever recall a time where you just
Right here.
throw a bag in and a handout. But no, that's exactly it right here, Ryan. And I wanted to reach out to people, do something better. And, you know, we spent a month getting ready for it. Now we're doing it. And
We put a lot of work into
we're
it.
looking forward to it
That's what
growing,
I like.
right?
If people have viewpoints and they want to help people, I think that group of people should do it. Not say, you know what, we think this should be a certain way. Government, do it for us.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I guess I touched on it earlier. I guess my argument against capitalism and what you were talking about is simply this. There is a group of people. There's people everywhere who simply they did not get dealt a winning set of cards or even a playable hand. And I think my problem is that those people do need help. And in a fully capitalist society, I don't think that happens.
Well, people get help all the time, and we live in a fully capitalist society, so I do think it happens. I don't know. I mean, if you don't like a capitalist society, you're saying there's a handful of people who have too much, and the opposite of a capitalist society is a communist society. No. And I'd rather the free market have too much and me have the ability than government.
I guess my problem is that there's labels on it at all. I just think people should, you sent me that link about libertarianism. That's like, from what I've read about it and what I understand, that is the perfect way to live.
I'm a big fan of libertarianism. I mean, if you think people need help, then perhaps you can help them as much as you can, right? And like, maybe I often call myself a cynic, but maybe I just have too much faith in thinking that humanity could help itself out. If people were left with their own money and half of their income wasn't taxed, that they would do these great things that they expect the government to do in a more efficient way.
I guess my main point is that in our arguments, we all have this bias based on the experiences we've had in our life. And it's very easy for us to look at it that way because we weren't living on the streets. We weren't born into poverty. We weren't born to a mom or dad who beat us or treat us like shit.
Well, it depends how you define poverty. I mean, if you're talking about the poverty line, then
no. I'm talking about people who are fighting every day to have enough to eat, to find somewhere to sleep, that kind of level. I think below the poverty level doesn't mean you can't succeed at all.
And I think there would be a lot more people who would have the means and would be willing to help those people out if half of their income wasn't taken by the government to do that exact job in a very inefficient way.
That's a tough
allocation of funds for sure.
I've never heard anyone say government's done this the most efficient way possible. It's so bureaucratic, and
I completely agree.
The money just doesn't go. A dollar just doesn't stretch as far through the government.
It's hard, man. When you're, when I was working in Alberta, there was, times we put in some serious overtime, and I'd have a paycheck where close to $2,000 in income tax was deducted. Mm-hmm. Well,
that's just not fair.
That's on one side, we're blessed to be making that kind of money, but on the other angle from it, where's this going? It's tough to see sometimes, and because you are in that higher bracket, you're not necessarily going to be getting that back.
How does taxing the middle class 50% solve this problem?
I completely agree with you on that. I can't wrap my head around this idea that I bought into it at first. 100% I bought into tax the people who have money. This is bullshit.
We have to stop demonizing wealth.
No.
That to me, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
People look at people who are successful and have wealth, and they never even stop to think about the hard work or what might have gone into obtaining that wealth. They automatically usually assume that those people are not doing great things for humanity with that wealth. The way people demonize wealth these days, it disgusts me.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That's a good point.
And I mean, I love this meme on Facebook right now. It's a Bernie Sanders meme. If you want people who work 40 hours a week to stop living in poverty, perhaps you should stop taxing them 50% to provide for people who work 0 hours a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that hard work is the best way to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a firm believer that taking what people earn from them is a very large deterrent of hard work.
Yeah.
We've made it, I'm all for social assistance programs,
Yeah.
but I feel like we've made it too easy to rely on those programs as a way of life
Yes,
rather than
yes.
giving someone a hand when they've fallen on hard times to get back in the game. And
Do you worry that Bernie Sanders is going to get in and it's really going to mess up this? Like if you look at his platform,
I'll say this: I
if
don't
he-
think Bernie Sanders will ever get in. The
No?
Democratic Party, I mean, they're so rigged. Even if he wins the majority of the primaries, they won't support him as a candidate because he goes too far left.
yeah,
From
Is
what the
he the Democratic version of Trump?
Well, people have that misconception too. Trump is not too far right.
No.
Trump is far closer to the center than
yeah.
Ted Cruz. I mean,
he was a Democrat. he supported the Democrats until he started to run for the Republicans.
Bernie Sanders is more the Ted Cruz of the left.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
Ted Cruz
Ted
is
Cruz is
very,
very far
traditional conservative. He's very far right. Ted
Or,
Cruz.
sorry, yes,
Yeah.
far right. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think the Democratic.
I really think like I don't remember to me even when Obama was running, I don't think there was as much interest in the election, not even close, as there is right now. I feel
Yeah, I
like,
often wonder about that. I mean, I feel like that's because when Obama was running, we were all younger and people our age weren't as
Yeah.
interested. But now that people our age all are as interested, we see a
That's
lot
a good
more of that.
point.
Not
on
only more
Facebook and
interested,
stuff
but
like
how
that, right?
great the social media platforms
totally.
and coverage has
It's
developed.
evolved and-
You know,
It-
like
it's
it almost
everywhere.
it's literally like almost like reality TV pageantry. Like it's so. That's what I couldn't imagine if the Canadian election was being covered the same way, or like there was a lot of shots taken back and forth, but it seemed a lot. I want to say almost subtle compared to what American candidates.
let's touch on that. How do you feel about Trudeau being elected in and what he's done so far? I mean, it hasn't been
Can I
that
say
long.
one thing
but-
first on the
yeah,
American
Yeah,
first?
of course.
I would identify as a Republican, but I think there's a real problem in the States when the last two presidents, one being a Republican, Bush, one being a Democrat, Obama, are responsible for 13 trillion of the 18 trillion debt in the States. To me, in the last 16 years, if they're responsible for roughly 3/4 of the debt, there's a big problem in America. And I'm saying that against the Republicans
Yeah,
because Bush
yeah.
was responsible for 5.5 of that.
But do you believe this idea that it doesn't matter who gets in, that regardless of who gets in, they're controlled by big business? That
I believe it to a certain extent. If you're backed by super PACs and all your funding comes from big business, it passes the sniff test that you might be a little bit biased towards supporting the viewpoints of big business that paid for you to get there.
yeah.
I can't say with certainty that I know that the big business is pulling all the strings behind the scenes, but it wouldn't totally surprise me if they were. That's one of the things I also still like about Trump. I mean, again, I would never vote for Trump, but it interests me that he's sort of broken that mold. I'd love to see Bloomberg run. He's a Democrat
Yeah.
on the other side of that.
Yeah.
He trumps Trump's fortune. I mean, I believe he's worth $40 billion, so he's
That's-
brought that interesting dynamic to it.
Okay, let's go back to
I just wanted to tie that together. I think that's why, though. I think that's why people identify the rich as a problem, is because that idea that they are the ones controlling the government, and I think that kind of ties into people's mentality that the rich need to pay.
Yeah, well, people
Which-
demonize the rich. I think we look at it the wrong way. I don't think we should look at it as it's unfair. Why are all these people poor? I think it would be maybe more beneficial for our society if we looked at these people and said, how did they achieve what they've done, and how can we maybe not mirror all of that, but how can we work to also achieve success instead of just saying, well, here we are and this is wrong.
That's why I love The Rock. I think he shows that guy is seriously. But I know it's a weird transition, but think about where he came from and where he is now, and literally simply hard work.
Oh, I believe in the American
And
dream.
he
I think
does,
anyone can
and I get the
achieve it.
American dream. I understand, but I just like him specifically as
sorry, you're talking about Dwayne Johnson?
Dwayne Johnson,
The Rock.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I believe he epitomizes, like, that guy works nonstop.
And he gives back nonstop.
Yeah.
You know,
He's
most
a-
people who work really hard and don't spend absolutely foolishly can do all right in North America.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also a problem with poverty, the way people spend their money.
Yeah.
I mean, most people who are living in, well, I won't say most, but a lot of people who are living in poverty, they've got the smartphone, they've got
Yeah.
the big screen TV. We're a debt nation, which disgusts me in a lot of ways.
People don't feel like they need to earn things.
Yeah, exactly.
anymore.
I feel like they deserve all
Yeah.
those things, right? Like, you know what? I don't have the money, but I deserve this $5 coffee every day because why shouldn't I have it?
Yeah.
Other people have it. I deserve it too.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't agree with that. I mean, I've made a lot of sacrifices from things I'd
remember-
like to have.
Yeah, I
to-
remember you saying that when you were on last time, and I completely agree with that. Like, and I spend more than I have always. I'm always spending before I have the money, and then okay, well no, but I'm gonna get paid, and it's all good. I mean, I've done well for myself.
It's an endless cycle, though.
I own a
right?
house. I own this. Well, the bank owns it, but I have this. I have that. But I had a lot of help. Right? I had family that helped me financially if I needed it.
Yeah, and how were they able to help you financially? Like, I can say this
Yeah.
with confidence because I grew up around your family.
Yeah.
Your family, your mom and dad are hardworking people, and they should be able to help you if that's what they choose to do with their wealth. Because in my opinion, they've spent a lifetime working hard and earning it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't argue with that.
So, is it a bad thing that you're lucky? In my opinion, no, and it shouldn't be demonized that you did have those opportunities because
somewhere
I've
along
seen
the line,
your dad
someone
go to
worked hard.
work
Yep.
every day.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since I can remember. Same thing with my dad.
Yep.
And both of our moms work incredibly hard providing the home life for us that we have. And they work to provide us with, other things that we have.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yes, I think we're both lucky in that way, but I think that's thanks to our parents' hard work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way. That's a
I have
good
a
way
ton
to
of
look at
respect
it.
for people like that. I mean, I feel lucky that we were able to grow up around the people that we did and see that type of those type of role models.
Yeah, Ryan and I were basically neighbors growing up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was, it was
road
a
hockey.
good neighborhood and area.
It was a really good area for sure.
we grew up in a blue collar neighborhood.
I
and
did. I don't. A lot of people always tore in Aldergrove growing up, but I
I'm
didn't.
a lover. I love Aldergrove.
I loved it, and I love being around here.
I love
It's-
Aldergrove as well. I love that small town mentality, and
Yeah.
that's why, like, me and him were talking before you got here about this. They need to do something with the little tiny downtown core. You spruce that up, man. Aldergrove could be just.
Why do they need to do something? I mean, we're the citizens of Aldergrove. Why
No,
we
okay.
can do something?
Okay, that's a good point, but unfortunately, yeah, you need to start some side of a campaign, fundraise. I mean,
Yeah, it sounds like a lot harder work than just saying they need to do something, but it's
yeah, I
It's-
get,
we
I
can
can
do
get
it.
that point, but unfortunately, the way the system's set up is, they're in charge of roads. We give them tax money to do that stuff.
I think we're doing all right in Aldergrove.
You think so? I
No,
think that mall
definitely.
needs to go. I think.
It'd be nice to see.
Oh, I mean-
I don't see that being a township or government issue, though. It'd just be nice if somebody.
But yeah, it'd be nice if a private
But even the-
organization to
For
sort
me,
of capitalized on that.
Even the
but-
frontal of all those buildings, you spruce that street up.
Yeah,
Man.
that goes back to resident owners and real
Yeah.
estate and stuff like that. But
You're not a fan of like for me, I guess. And I wrote a little article on it, and my point was that if you always hear these like homeowner tax breaks for renovations and stuff like that, and to me, you do something like that for all those businesses. You say we'll cover, pay no tax on your upgrades to anything to the front of your building.
I'll just stop
Oh,
you there.
just
I'm not a fan of tax breaks for everyone. Just let me keep my money in the first place.
Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of taking it, then giving it back because you
Yeah.
agree with something that I'm going to do with it. Just don't take it.
Yeah,
That's my viewpoint.
Okay.
I mean, I view marriage the same way.
but
Why should people who are married get tax breaks? I feel like I'm a citizen who
that's-
contributes just as much to society. That's what I mean when I say I don't want to keep giving government more and more of this power.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to take it back. Instead of giving me a tax break because I do something you like, just let me have my money in the first place.
yeah, that's a good point.
That's how I view it.
Would you have something you wanted to?
no, I just we were leaning towards the old Trudeau Harper
Oh.
there before we got.
Yeah, that's that's a good point to end this convo on.
I'm always loving to hear Jimmy's opinion on politics. we had hours and hours and hours of discussion. prelim of the election there. So.
Yeah, I think most people who know me know I'm definitely not a Liberal supporter. I'm not a big fan of Trudeau. I mean, I really hope to see him do great things, but I identify more with the Conservative vote because the main issues for me do revolve around economy and things like that, and I support the Conservative viewpoint and ideologies on
And right
finance.
now, that's what the country needs.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I don't think it's fair to be going into debt. I don't think it's fair to our youth. Everyone complains about not being able to afford a home and things like that and poor interest rates. Well, the nation's debt directly influences the interest rates we pay and things like that. So I don't think it's a terrible market for us right now as young adults to try to get into a home of our own. But I think it's going to be much more dire for our future.
Protesting real estate costs in Vancouver right now as well.
So, specifically as far as Trudeau goes, do you think, what is your impression of him so far in office?
Well, it's very hard for me to have a firm impression of a guy who has been in office, I believe, 100 and maybe 2 days, something like that.
Not much.
But I do think in that time he's grossly failed to lend the federal support that it's needed in Alberta.
Yeah.
I think Alberta is the lifeblood of our country. I really do. I mean, what Alberta has done for Canada over the last 100 years without...
They have pumped money into other provinces who were struggling, and there has never been a give back.
No, and they need that now. And people, the things I'm hearing people say about Albertan citizens, all the fucking Oakleys and the jacked up trucks, it literally disgusts me.
People don't realize that the people doing that are the people who are coming to Alberta from other provinces to work because they want to make the big bucks.
I barely ever
that
met.
When we live in a debt nation, maybe we shouldn't critique how people spend their money. We spend our money here in Vancouver on luxury sports cars and Ray-Bans.
Yeah.
I don't hear anyone saying cut BC out because there are a bunch of douchebags there.
Mm-hmm.
We are a debt nation. Everyone's in debt, and I would, in my opinion, argue that as a country we spend our money poorly. To say that about Albertan people in a time of need when they've done so much for the country, like Parm said, literally pumping money across the country.
Yeah.
It makes me lose my faith in humanity.
The one part, spending years out there, I just never understood. And, going back and forth from BC to Alberta, I can understand certain liberal points and certain conservative points, but it was a struggle to really see how, everyone that I met in Alberta was there to work and make money and make their life better. I didn't go to Alberta to enjoy the snow. I went there because I was off work for 2.5 years with back surgery and I wanted to catch up on my life,
And now it's demonized. People are pointing to Alberta and saying they made a lot of money. They should have spent it better. I agree completely with Matt. I worked in Alberta. I worked on oil rigs only for 3 months. In my anecdotal experience of all the work I've done, those are the hardest working people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
People, I had largely
you're
the same
there, you're
experience
there
at
for
Edmonton.
purpose. You're there. No one's there because, a lot, and I shouldn't say no one's there because they like it. A lot of the guys that I had met who were from there and live there, especially the guys in Grand Prairie, man, they spend their summers golfing, playing ball, being outside. They spent their winters at sled camps, snowboarding, skiing, hunting. It's the lifestyle there. If you adapt to it and love it, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the massive amount of population of people coming from all over the world, I mean, there was guys coming from the East Coast, Newfoundland, BC, just everything, and then the whole economy during the election, you get all those people on the East Coast that are anti-conservative when they were, biting out of the cake that the Conservative Party was making for them, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you see all those people demonizing, well, they made so much money, they made too much money. When oil was good, that opportunity was there for whoever willing to work hard.
Yep.
And I agree, a lot of people taking a bite out of the Conservative cake.
I guess my biggest problem with him, I obviously agree he needs to do something about this crisis in Alberta, but I feel like he's more worried about just his public perception, his own covers of magazines and his whole 50-50 cabinet and just shit that does not matter.
I'll
That
give him the
doesn't
benefit
help.
of the doubt
Yeah,
on
but
the
that's
50-50
that's
cabinet.
don't matter to us,
I
right?
don't give him
That,
the
I mean,
benefit of the doubt on
I
that.
give him the benefit of the doubt on the 50-50 cabinet because I assume that those people he's brought in that were underrepresented do actually also deserve to be there. That they're not just
No.
there as a face of representation. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
completely
that those
agree
are
with you that I
qualified
don't
people.
think he put people into the positions who didn't deserve to be there. What bugs me is that he's saying it that way because
totally.
he knows people are going to be like, "Wow, yeah."
Because it's 2016 in
it's
Canada.
so
I mean,
It just it
I think it devalues. If I was one of those people, I'd feel devalued. I don't want this job because it's 2016. I want this job because
I earned it.
I earned it.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That's just
exactly.
how I think I view most things. I'd rather have them earned than given to me.
Okay, so we should we're basically at a time here.